Everyone, this is Kasia. Thanks for joining Susie and me for our webinar tonight on goal setting and action planning. The reason we chose this topic is that many of our volunteers actually need quite a lot of support with setting goals and planning their actions. I think only a small proportion of our volunteers actually know what their goals are and they know how to achieve them. I think who have quite a clear idea about what they want to do, but they're not sure how to get there. And many of them actually have no idea of what they want to do, what they want to achieve. So if you ask them, what are your goals, where you want to be, what do you want to achieve, the answer quite likely will be, I don't know. And then by helping a mentee with setting good, realistic goals and helping them with planning the actions that will help them achieve those goals is a very important part of the role of a mentor. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. If you have any questions or comments at any point, let us know. Please use the chat box. If you address the questions to all panelists, that would help us. Problems with hearing us is better. Okay. Please ask any questions and share any comments at any point of the webinar. And if you address them to all panelists, then both Susie and I will be able to see them. Also, if you know any tools, if you've used any tools that helped you your mentee set good goals, please let us know as well. So, on to you.
Right, well, good evening, everyone. I don't know if anyone on who hasn't been at any of the previous sessions, but just to introduce myself, I'm Susie McLeod, and I'm a mentor with Project Scotland and have been since the beginning of the year. And after my consultant, IT and project management and a few other things along the way, I have a bit of spreading my wings and studied counselling and qualified as a coach and NLP practitioner. So this is one of the areas that coaching techniques are very, very useful for. So I've come up with a few points that might help you on the way while you're mentoring your mentees. Now, the first thing I wanted to go through was the GROW model. And I believe anyone who's listening in today has been on the introduction to mentoring sessions, the training sessions, where you went through the GROW model. This is a very brief reminder. GROW stands for G is for goal, and that's setting the goals, working out what your mentee or coachee wants to achieve. R is the reality stage, which is exploring where they are just now, what they've got, what they've done in the past that might have worked or whatever. Is options, and this is the kind of get crazy, brainstorm, all the sorts of things that they do to achieve the goals. And W is the way forward, and the will to actually go forward and take actions which will enable them to get closer to their goal. So it's a useful framework. It doesn't have to be followed sluggishly. It's a framework and guidelines, and if you're using it just if you wouldn't be giving advice or suggestions or whatever, but obviously mentoring isn't coaching, but an element of coaching as part of your mentoring is actually going to help the mentees clarify what they want, as Kasia says, find out what they do want and how they're actually going to achieve it. Well, I've kind of thoughts on the different stages of the GROW model. For the setting of the goal, first you're all aware of SMART goals, make them specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and with a time scale. And it's quite easy for mentees or anyone to say, to do or be something, but if they don't have a time scale on it and they don't know how they're actually going to know that they've achieved it, then it's kind of a dream. It's not a goal. You have to think about what you do want first of all. But when they have they want to achieve either in the session or moving forward, it's like to ask them how they'll know that they've achieved their goal, and that really gets people thinking. Yes, I want to be better at some skill. How am I going to know I've achieved that? How am I going to know that I'm better? What's going to how will I recognise that I have actually got there? And that a lot more real, and really gets them thinking about what it is that they want to achieve. I think very important is to explore how achieving the goal will benefit the mentee, because there's a lot of people whose goals are actually projected on them, and they're what they think they ought to do, or what their parents they should do, or what somebody told them would be a good idea. So you can ask them, well, how is this going to benefit you, or what are you to get out of it? How is that going to help you in the future? Lots of questions around that. But
yeah, and I think it's very important, because sometimes it is parents who actually tell them what they need to do or what they have to do. But sometimes I think there might be this temptation on your side as a mentor, because you feel what would be good for them, or what would the best way of doing a certain thing be. And some of our volunteers will not feel confident enough to tell you that they don't agree with you, or they want to do something else. So I think this explains making sure that it's their goal, not someone else's. That's very important. And I think making sure what or exploring what they understand they mean when they say this is my goal. I remember talking to one of our volunteers who said that he wanted to go into investment banking, and he also wanted to be matched with a mentor specifically from that field. And when we discussed this, it turned out that he had a very vague idea of what investment banking was. He said that his numerical skills were good, so that's why he thought investment banking would be for him. So I think this exploration and having a discussion about how this goal, how they will benefit when they achieve this goal, why it's important to them, what mean to them, that can help in many different ways.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that the next point I've shared, that the goal should be personal to the mentee, and should be their own goal. And to have a goal that some work with should treat you better, that is not really a goal that's within your control. Well, you have some influence over it, but the goal should be something that's under their control to achieve. So they should want it, and they should be able to do with, obviously, what needs to be done to achieve it.
And sometimes we get phone calls or emails from mentors saying, well, I have this problem with my mentee because we agreed on this, and that, and they haven't done it, and I haven't been doing it for the past month, let's say. So that's when it might be worth to go back to the goal and actually try to see what's in there. And one of the reasons can be that he doesn't really feel that it's their goal, so they're not willing to work towards achieving it,
or feel that they're not capable of getting there. If they think that they can get there, and if it's something that they want and they genuinely want, then it's a lot easier to get them to do the actions. That's similar to my last point here, to refer back to your mentee's goal throughout the process. So especially when you're coming up with actions, be referring back and saying, and how is this action going to help you towards your goal? Or how is this going to help you towards a stage where you can take your goal further?
Mm-hmm.
So linking actions to genuine goals that your main believes that they can achieve is the secret, really. Or one of the secrets. There's no one secret. Okay, a few points on the stage. So this is all about exploring their current situation, what's going on in their head at the moment, what's going on in their placement, and also it's exploring their experience, their talents, their skills, their preferences. So the stage is actually bringing into their own awareness what talents they have and what's currently going on, so they can see, well, where's my current situation, what have I got that's going to help me towards moving towards my goal. So yeah, explore experience, talents, skills and preferences, and also who and what can help them, because although I say it should be within their control to achieve, it's not that they have to be able to do every single thing without any support, and that's where a lot of people fall down, because they don't have the support, or they have people who are working against them achieving their goals. So I think who and what can help them, but also who and what might be hindering them, what might have gone wrong in the past when they've tried to achieve similar goals. When have they done in the past that's worked? What have they done that they've had successes with? And if they, well, it didn't work in the past, or, well, it worked to an extent, then explore with them what that extent was. And if it didn't work in the past, you can explore, okay, tried that, it didn't work. What circumstances? What now that you didn't know then? What support do you have now that you don't know then? Does your current situation differ from then? Because otherwise they might just try something again because, you know, it's a bit of a failure with it in the past, and that's not necessarily a good thing. When we want to the option phase, I'd like to encourage the mentee not to self-censor and to be creative in their thinking about what it could do or how ridiculous. I enjoy this because it's like brainstorming. It's just, you know, be as crazy as you like. Nothing is a bad idea. Even a crazy idea might have a little gem in it that might actually be the thing that's going to take them forward. And also, it's a bit fun, you know, just to talk about things that they could do. So maybe they know that we're talking about, well, what could you do, not what they're going to commit to doing, but just what are all the options. You know, they can thing or another. But at this stage, don't evaluate these options. Just come up with a lot of things that they could do. And the good question here is, what else could you do? And what else should you do? And not notice you've said it 10 times. Yeah, stress that this isn't what they will do. You're just generating ideas at this stage. What else? Yeah, not even having to look at the slide here. And then you can also use what comes out of the reality stage to prompt other ideas. So you can be saying, well, you said that you did this once before. How would that work? Is that something you try again? So because not being a pure coach here, you can make the odd suggestion. Yeah, I would say keep this stage light-hearted and fun, because that's what it should be. Actually, it should be a bit of fun, I think. My personal view.
Yeah, and I think this stage kind of bridges the gap between the goal is where they want to be, and the reality, which is where they are.
Yeah.
So by exploring options, they actually come up with ideas of how they can get where they want to be from where they are, and what steps they can take. And I think it's very important what you said, Susie, about keeping it lighthearted, fun, because I think sometimes when we have and we don't know how to achieve it, then we may get a bit stuck, and it may all seem negative, and it may be difficult to actually come up with ideas of how to overcome this difficulty. So having some fun with this exploration can actually help and help them think outside of the box, and generate some great ideas.
Yeah, and there's lots of wonderful questioning you can have at this stage. You know, like if you say, "Well, I don't know," you can say, "Well, would your, one granny suggest, or what would your best friends say, or what would your placement manager advise you to do, or what would you advise somebody else to do in this situation? What could they do?" Coming up with all sorts of ideas like that. Just explore around it. There's probably other questions for if they're stuck, but generally it's the, what would somebody else do? And I think you said yesterday, Kasia, the advise somebody else to do, or what would you do if what was in your situation? What would you say to me? Which I've used a few times. Okay, so the W part of the role model stage. This is where you get real. You get easy at the option stage, and then you get real. So this mentee should have a list of things that they could do. They might be a bit general. Some of them might be a bit wacky. And at this stage, help your mentee filter this list of options into what will give them the big benefit for the least effort, and ones they're enthusiastic about doing. So the way you do that is say, well, which of these is a no-brainer? Which of these it's just so obvious it's not going to take much, and it is actually going to move you forward. And how would you rank them? What would be the one you're feeling most enthusiastic about? What would be one that you think will give you the most benefit? What's the one that would be most fun? What's the one that would take least time? All that sort of thing. So just asking these sort of questions, you can come out with a short list of options and start to get near to what they could actually do. I've said to encourage your mentee to come up with one action they're absolutely 100% committed to doing, even if they don't complete all actions in their list. Because I think many Amy's think sometimes, and they'll say, "Oh yes, I could do that, that and that," and they get very enthusiastic about all the things that you've talked about, and they end up with a list of things that they're ever going to do, and they're just setting themselves up to fail. So if you can tie them down to say, okay, life might happen, things might come along and get in your way, but if that's what one thing you definitely do, and that's the must choose, the one that's going to really the no-brainer, it's going to give them the benefit for least effort, and they're going to enjoy doing it. And then you can have the list of, this is what I need to do, and then the next time, and they say, "Oh, I didn't do all my list, but I did do my one thing that I absolutely promised I was going to do," then that is so much better than saying, "I failed to get through my list, I only did 3 out of 5 or whatever." At this stage, also it's a good idea to get them to think about what might get in the way of them, their actions. And at the end of this, coming up with a list of actions that they're going to do, or they're going to do, it's a good idea to establish on a scale of 1 to 10, or 100 or whatever, like how enthusiastic they are about doing what they've said they're going to do, committed they are to doing it. You know, are they absolutely definite that they are going to do it, even although they might not be that enthusiastic, and how confident they are about doing the actions. Are there actions that they're thinking, well, I'm not really very sure I can do that. So if they, yes, I'm, I'm enthusiastic, but I'm not sure because I've got a lot of other things on, so maybe I need commitment, and actually I'm only about a 5 in confident because I really don't know how I'm going to do that. If as you're going forward with your list of actions, my question is, and how are you going to do that? And then tell you, and then you'll say, how are you going to do that? And you can iterate that one as well.
And I think it would be a useful tool also to explore what they find difficult about achieving the goal.
Yes.
So by asking them all the questions, you can actually, whether it's the goal itself, or whether they don't know how to do a particular practical thing, or whether there's something about their self-confidence, they're anxious about doing that. So that will help you understand better what they're struggling with. And also, I think if you ask them to rate it on a scale, and they actually 2 or 3, so something really low, then perhaps again it's worth thinking about the goal, going back to the goal and discussing if it's the right goal for them.
Saying 2 or 3, something's gone wrong, really, because on any of these scales, really, if there's anything less than 5, say, okay, let's go back and have a look at the goal. If saying anything over 5, I would tend to ask the question, well, what would have to happen to make that 1 more, or if we say 8, what would have to happen for that to be a 10? And just in thinking about what obstacles they're putting away there. At this stage, having gone through the GROW model, this might be a good stage to come up with any questions.
We have one from Kate. Kate is asking, would you ask about the hobbies and interests of the volunteers to help them have an idea of what they could end up possibly doing as a career? I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's something a mentor can help a lot with, because many of our volunteers are unknown what their skills are, what they're good at, what they could do. So sometimes starting with something hobby, so also something they feel comfortable with when they talk to you, that can be a very, very good starting point.
Absolutely. I would think that would be a very good thing to ask them about at the reality stage. What other things do you have skills in, really? Because your hobbies and interests, you actually do have a skill there. So, asking about what their hobbies and interests are is going to uncover more and more what they might want to do and what they would be able to do. They would be enthusiastic about doing.
And they could also benefit from that in terms of their self-confidence. So something we discussed before, if they see more and more things they're good at or they can do, that would obviously have an impact on their self-confidence.
Absolutely. I think we were saying, as I've gone through there, I've made it sound a bit prescriptive. You have to do goal, then you have to do reality, then you have to do the options, and then coming up with a list of actions and the way forward. It's probably like that. That is probably too rigid. So it is a flexible framework. You can jump about, you can iterate around, you can, we'll come on to another model a little later. But don't feel that you have to follow this exactly. And the thing that I'm saying here are ideas that you can use. I'm not saying this is the way that you should mentor always. So, and from the will way forward, a few thoughts on action planning. I think I've probably said this before, but it bears repeating. When discussing the mentee's action plan, refer to their goal, and that's what they ultimately want to achieve. Or a sub-goal if you're, have action on some area of it, and how actions are going to take them towards it. Because one of the very motivating things is, this is what I want to achieve, this is how it's going to benefit me, and if I do this, it's going to take me one step closer. And to kind of see it in their own head, and link their actions to actually achieving something is very motivating. Or it should be very, well, I've used the should word. Okay. Another is to encourage mentees to look for quick wins, and that they can take that are going to give them some benefit, even though it's not a huge benefit, but they're going to get some benefit and move them slightly towards their goal for minimal effort. Because if they can achieve even a couple of very, very small things, if they're getting from that immediately, that's again going to motivate them to do more. So in a way, the filtering of your options should bring out your quick wins. What's going to be quickest, what's going to give you the benefit for the least effort. And how are you going to do that? Or what's involved in doing that? So rather than, I'm going to about something or other. Well, how are you going to do that? Who are you going to phone? How are you about that? And they might come out with something that's slightly vague, and so you ask them again, how are you going to do that? And I think I've probably done this about 5 or 6 times on one supposed action. So that you eventually want to get down to something that they can just go through and tick off, that it's really obvious what they're doing. They don't have to go away and think, oh, now am I going to do this? Because that's where people stall. And realistic it is to do all the actions that they're taking away, because what you don't want to do, actually for their confidence, is to have them go away with a list of actions that they're just destined to fail to do because it's too much. And I think it's easy to get carried away if your mentees get really enthusiastic about, I could do this, this, and this, and oh yes, I'll definitely do all of these things. Calm them down a little bit and say, well, how realistic is this? And you want them to come back, ideally, having completed what they said that they would complete. And what you want to do is say, okay, what is realistic, and what else could you do if you had time, or you managed to do that quicker than you expect. And to kind of pin them down and get them really thinking about how realistic it is, you can ask them, well, when could you be doing this? When could you fit that into your schedule? So get people thinking, rather than a list of things to do, they're actually thinking about scheduling it. And if NT is anything like me, you'll come up with that, yes, I can do all that next week, and then you kind of look at your calendar and you think, oh, I don't have any spare time slots here. So getting them to think about that on how much time they've got available and what they could do in these time scales, what happens when other things come along that will use up some of that available time. Trouble here. Okay, another thing to explore is what could get in the way or blow them off course, and what they could do if that happens. So what obstacles might stop them doing what they've said they're going to do, and how they're going to be blown off course. And if they're blown off course and they've done less than they expected to do, hopefully to bring themselves back onto course again. So that gets them thinking ahead of time about probably the realistic situation that nothing ever goes perfectly according to plan. Best laid plans, ways and men, and all that. But if they're ahead, okay, if that happens, this is what I'll do. I'll do a bit less, but I'll do these important things. So there's a kind of contingency plan there. And going to be less discouraged if they find, halfway through the week or the fortnight that they're not as far on as they thought they would be. They'll have thought about that eventuality. Yeah, my second point I've said there. Build their confidence by making sure that the results are carrying out the actions and they're not constantly falling short of what they say they're going to do.
But I think sometimes when you discuss the mentee, they can be anxious about achieving that goal and very anxious even thinking about achieving it. And I think what can help is what we discussed before, just trying to identify which part of the task, which part of the goal is difficult for them. And I think, because an example comes to my mind when I worked with one of my mentees, very, very anxious about the presentation she had to do at the end of her voluntary placement. And when discussed what was solved for her, it turned out that it was presenting in front of other people. So she was fine with doing the PowerPoint. She knew exactly what she wanted to say. She said she wouldn't have any problems with collecting all the material. It was just presenting in front of other people. So what I did to do was to make a list of situations where everything else apart from this single aspect would be the same. So we had a list of situations like that. So for example, her presenting herself at home, her presenting to me at one of our meetings, her presenting to one of her friends, then to a group of her friends, and then I asked her to rate these situations on a scale to identify how anxious she felt about each of them. So she said presenting to herself was the one that was easy for her, and then the most difficult one was, I think, presenting to another person at the placement, so not to the whole group, but someone there at the placement. And because we had plenty of time, the presentation was to be delivered at the end of her placement. She do all these things, so she took all the steps, and we discussed after she'd done each of them. We discussed that, and she could see how her confidence grew, and because the final one was close on the scale to actual presentation in front of a group of the people at the placement. So this kind of ladder approach was very helpful for her. So whenever there's time, I think that's a very, very useful technique, because it's like being at the bottom of the ladder, and obviously you want to go to the top. So taking steps
step at a time
between,
and also asking about what support they might need, which is similar to what you're doing. There's the support of taking a step at a time. What one thing would make you feel anxious or have a little bit more confidence, and the feedback loop. You're something, you do a smaller version of it. It goes well. You feel a bit more confident the next time doing something. Will just push you a little bit further out of your comfort zone, and so you're kind of stretching rather than let's just throw you into a panic zone. But I think taking incremental steps is a great way to do it. And next mentoring session, we're reviewing the actions from the previous session make celebrate the successes, and also encourage your mentee to learn from anything that went wrong or didn't get done. I think it's counterproductive if she comes back and says, well, I've done this, but I've actually managed to do this, this and this. If you're going to immediately say, oh, that's disappointing, you know, why didn't you do that? What went wrong here? That's not going to be terribly motivating, but celebrating the success, saying, oh, well done, you managed to do that, that's excellent. And what you learn about the things that you didn't do, you know, got in the way of it, how could you make sure that doesn't happen the next time? It gives you of having a dialogue that's going to feed back, and hopefully the next time we'll do a little bit more. But being over critical and I think it'd be supportive and do a lot of celebration of what they do, stay positive side, and yes, say okay, some things you'll not do as well as you had hoped to, or that you know your mentor would hope you to, but not to take it like oh, I couldn't have done very well because you didn't do it, but to say okay, what can you learn from that? So always take the positive and the positive side and say, yeah, what could you do differently, and really explore where things are falling down, because you need to help them. You know, I think we've talked about mentees thinking, well, this is a mentor, but they're not actually telling me what to do, and they're not that much of an authority figure. You want to be the support, the person who says, what you do or don't do, we're going to use it for your end. I'm here to help you. You're not here to please me.
Yeah, and this reflection is a very important part of the process and learning. And just like you said, I think it can be definitely counterproductive if you just focus on the things a mentee didn't do. But equally, it can be counterproductive if you say, oh, you didn't do it, that's fine, just do it for next week, without actually exploring what happened and why they actually didn't do what they said they would do.
And make sure they know you want them to succeed, and you're there as a resource for them to use to help them succeed. It's their career, their life that you're mentoring them in, and sometimes it's difficult for both mentor and mentee to get their head around that kind of relationship. Okay, it's something that I thought to share with you. It's just a little framework for agreeing and prioritising actions. So basically, you're talking about with your mentee about what actions they'll do. Thing is, what are they going to do, which we've covered. Why will this benefit that action benefit them? And that's basically down to how is this going to help you achieve your goal? It might not necessarily help them achieve their goal. It might just make them feel a little bit more confident, but even that might be helping them towards it. Yeah. So it might not be that obvious how it's going to help them with their goal, but it has to benefit them in one way or another. How it? So that one, you know, you're going to do this, but what are the steps you're going to take to be able to do that? And get them really thinking about, you know, a list of actual actions that they can do. And the killer question: how will you know that you've been successful? So enough detail, and have you been specific enough about your actions to be able to know that you've been successful in achieving them? And for all the actions that they're coming up with, just in their mind, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I know exactly how I'm going to do it. I know it's important to do it and what I'm going to get out of it, and I'm definitely going to know if I've been successful in doing it. Stage before we move on to a couple of other variations on the coaching model. Anyone have any questions? Or
I think both made a comment that for some mentees, the growth model may seem a bit abstract.
yeah,
So he finds particularly useful or helpful is to ask the mentee to do two things, to do two tasks. So first of all, to make a list of things they enjoy doing, and also to make a list of the things they undo at present. So that will help them identify their skills. So it's easier to come up with or to set goals when they think about what they want to do.
yeah,
So that can be something to
yeah,
they can create a goal around that. They want to do more of that, and reality will be actually what they can do at the moment. So then it might be easier for some mentees. By doing so, it might be easier for them to actually move forward and identify the gap between goals and reality.
Yeah, I think the model I'm going to come on to is a bit similar to that, but there's loads and loads and loads of tools that you can use, loads of different ways you can do this. This is a tiny proportion of them. That does sound good. Is there any other before we move on?
Can't moment, so I can quickly.
Right, so just briefly, a couple of variations, I suppose, on the GROW model. The first model is called CIGAR, and this is real adaptation of the GROW model, but it starts with reality, because asking somebody, well, what do you want to achieve, what's your goal, that is actually puts them a bit, and it's not necessarily a good way of doing it. The CIGAR model starts with the current reality, so you're talking about their current situation, what's good about it, what's bad about it. And this model is particularly good for career coaching, so it does fit more mentoring. Come up with, well, how are things? What's your current situation? How are things going in your placement, etc. You can say, okay, if in your placement, say, or your career, your life even, if it's just exactly as you would want it to, what would that look like? So you can come up with their ideal outcome and their goals and their priorities, because they've started thinking about, well, this is where they are now, if it's just perfect as how it would be, and that's, you know, if everything's perfect in your working life, you know, what would you ideally like to be doing? And if they say, well, I don't know, you can say, well, just think about an ideal day in your life. What would you be doing, and what sort of work might help you have that kind of life? So it's just a different kind of slant. And
it's a different way of asking the miracle question, as we call it. So imagine you're waking up tomorrow and things are like you want them to be. So what's different? What do you do? Where are you? Who are you with? And so on.
Yeah, absolutely. The waving magic wand. It gone to the G, gap. So that's the sort of analysis, if you like. What are the differences between your ideal and your current reality? And then what actions do you need to close that gap or to minimise that gap? So a different way of coming up with a list of actions. And then U is basically which actions the mentee will carry out before the next session. And the next session you might have a review about what they've done, and then go back into what is the current reality and round that again. Okay, about that. I don't think
no, I can see it.
Okay, finally, just to share with you something that some of you may have come across before, goal mapping. But you've probably guessed, I think, that if you put some fun into anything, it becomes more successful, and it does make people more creative and people are stressed and not having fun, I don't think as well. But it's a bit of creativity as well as logic and reason. So it's doing some coming up with your goals and how you're going to get it, but using both the left and the right hand side of your brain, so your logical side and your creative side. By doing that, it kind of pulls together a lot more creativity and links the two together. And that's the idea behind it anyway. And it will clarify their goals. Yeah, linked how they benefit and how they're going to make it happen in a clear, graphic and colourful way. I'll just move on to these templates that I'm going to just very briefly go through are available on free download from this website, which I can't read with my glasses at the moment, but I'm sure it will come out. You get copies of the slides. Yes, we can send it anyway. Okay, a guy called Brian Main who came up with this, and he does have a very good website, and the book on goal mapping is actually very good. It's a lot of examples, and if you're going to use this with your mentees, and they've enjoyed it and a lot out of it, it's given them a much more visual representation of how their goals are going to benefit them. So the idea is they come out with their main goal and they write it in the yellow box, and then they think of 4 goals, either parts of that goal or other goals which are going to support them in achieving that goal. Write down, they then think about the why, that's how is it going to benefit them, what's going to fit in with their values or whatever, and write 3 of the main ones in the why boxes. Then the date at the bottom is today's date, the when under the main goal is when they want to achieve it by, and a timeline which you can draw as a little ladder or whatever. And on the right side you have the hows, so that's your actions, what are the main actions that you can take to get to your goal. And on the left hand side it's who or what is going to help you or support you in achieving that goal. The left brain goal mapping. You then have the companion piece, which is right brain goal mapping. And basically what you do is you take your left brain goal map boards and you draw a picture or a representation of each of these things. So if you want to make £1 million, which is a pretty stupid goal to have, but whatever, you might have a picture of, piles of pound notes or dollars or whatever, and you might have other sub-goals that are, that would be in order for you to get that. You can draw a picture of the why might be because you want to own a house or something, or because you feel happier, so you have a big picture of a smile or whatever. You'll be able to go on holiday to the sun, so you have a picture of the sun. So basically you're drawing a picture, and in actually thinking about how you're going to represent it, it just brings in both halves of your brain, and you also encourage them to have as colourful pictures as possible. They don't have to run very well, but just have a bit of fun with it. It doesn't have to, it's for them. It's not, they're not going to draw it like for their art teacher and bring it back. If people can't draw, it doesn't matter. It's just for them. And it does give them this really nice picture and words to go with it, which they can actually put up on their wall, and they've got the whole picture of what they want, why they want it, how they're going to do it, who's going to help them, it's going to take them, and they can see how far they've got. So this is a bit of light relief, but I find it very successful. And it's saying actually everything that we've talked about in these webinars, it's actually a good idea to try it yourself. you love the tools and techniques, if you actually try them out on yourself, you're going to be in a much better position to sell them, if you like, to the mentee. I'm sure you'll all have a lot of fun doing this.
Yeah, I think with these two ways of representing your goals, everyone has their own preference. So there are some people who prefer words and lists. There are other people who prefer pictures or perhaps a mixture of that. So I think for it's good to be flexible and to be guided by mentee what their preferred format is, what they prefer to do. Is it to write down or to draw things, or perhaps to do both? But I think generally it is helpful to have something either drawn or written down on a piece of paper, because that makes it tangible. That's a tangible result of your work together. But also it's then easier to go back to the goal set or any aspect of the goal, because you have it somewhere and you can go back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the final slide. This again, when you go onto this website, or if you go onto this website to download these templates, it also gives you this instructions of what order you do it in, and you can see a little example of one that Wayne's done, I think, for himself. So it's a resource. It's free online to download, and it's a fun actually. And you don't have to do it. It might be that your mentee you think wouldn't be particularly enamored with it, but I mean, I think anything that gives, that's not just on talk helps. I think Kasia's point about getting things written down, someone didn't stress that the actions always get your mentee to write them down. I'm not always that good at making sure I do that, but it does help if you've got it written down. It's so much easier because people forget.
Yeah, friends made a very interesting comment that sometimes asking people to draw can be intimidating. So what she suggested a good way of doing that is to ask people to cut and paste pictures or images from magazines, for example. So making a collage, perhaps. And I think that's a very good idea. That can help many people be more creative. Perhaps.
You're right. I mean, some people think, oh, I can't draw. They're going to laugh at me. It's going to look stupid or whatever. And even although it doesn't matter if it looks stupid, as long as it means something to them, you're right, it can be intimidating. And I've had a lot of people who are quite confident who have been asked to draw something and have, you can see visibly shrinking. And that's not mentees, that's people who do have a lot of confidence and are very accomplished.
And the risk is that they focus on the anxiety around drawing rather than on what you're discussing and what they were asked to draw. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that brings us to the end of our webinar tonight. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I'm sending our short evaluation form tomorrow morning, so would be great to get your feedback, because also this webinar concludes our webinar week, so the first project's called webinar week. So it would be great to know what you liked about the webinars, but also what would improve or what we could do differently in future, because we're looking at having some more of webinars in future. So if there are any other topics you think would be useful, let us know as well. And once again, thank you very much and have a good night. Bye.